I'm so excited to record my first ever vlog and to answer questions that you guys asked me about playing for keeps. And one of the first questions I'm going to talk about is from my friend Gina. And she said, talk about why you made sports such a big deal in your books. It's not a common romance theme, and I want to know why you chose it. So let me tell you a little bit about me and sports. I grew up in this family who loves sports. We watch BYU football every week. My parents have this big basement and a big TV, and they cram like 20 people in there every week that BYU is playing football. They watch BYU play basketball constantly. All my brothers are big sports enthusiasts. All my sisters are big sports enthusiasts. We all go watch games. We all played sports in high school because we all came from this tiny town, and we just had a ton of opportunities to play a lot of sports. And so I love sports. I love football. This is a picture of me and my family at state basketball in Wyoming last March. You can tell we're intense. We yell at sports. Um, we're generally very kind to refs, but not always. So sports are a big deal, and I love football. I love football a lot, and I really wanted to incorporate football into a romance. And this kind of leads me to another question that Kaylee asked, which was, where did you get the idea for playing for keeps? And it all comes down to sports again, because I got the idea for playing for keeps while I was watching an interview with Jimmer Fredette. If you don't know who that is, he played basketball for BYU. He was very good, and he became very famous across all the nation. He took BYU down to the Sweet 16, I believe, in the basketball tournament, in the NCAA basketball tournament. And one day I was watching an interview with him, and then they interviewed his girlfriend. And my mind started clicking, and I started thinking, how would a girl like that start to date someone famous like Jimmer Fredette? And everything just started rolling. I was starting to think about this girl who knew a lot about sports and used that knowledge to get a date with him. And because I love football so much, I changed Jimmer into a football quarterback, and I named him Anthony with the help of my brother DJ, who was actually a huge help throughout writing all of Playing for Keeps. He kept Anthony to being a very realistic quarterback, while I made him the romance hero that a lot of people like. So, one of my next questions is, I'm really excited that somebody asked this question, and it was from Shannon. And she said, do you know someone with OCD? On Twitter, I follow a writer named Robinson Wells who does have OCD, and he's open about the challenges that he has because of it, the challenges that his family has because of it. But not only that, there are a lot of writers that I follow, that I interact with, who do suffer from mental illnesses, as we each know people in our lives who suffer from anxiety and depression and all these other common things. So I went on to do a lot of research to find out about OCD, to find out what people suffer when they have it, to find out how they deal with it and how they have normal lives. And I incorporated those things that I researched into Nikki's character. And Nikki is in the book, Nikki is in control of her OCD for the most part, and she's in a good place. And that's not always true of many people who have this. And it's interesting because discussing OCD, researching OCD, doing all of this for the book has led me to be a lot more sensitive to people using the term OCD when they're describing their own perfectionism, because it's definitely not the same. And it has led me to be more aware of how I'm using mental illness terms and such. Shannon also asked if I had a crazy stalker like Dylan in the book. Thankfully, I never have. However, some of the things that Dylan some of the things that Dylan does were inspired by some guys that I did know when I was at BYU. And in fact, the joke that Dylan tells during his date with Ty is a really bad joke that she gets really offended by. And that actually happened to me on a date. A guy was taking me out. He told me this very, very offensive joke and then laughed like I thought that that should be so funny. And I really wanted him to just turn the car around and take me home. And it was awful. So Tiffany asked, what was your favorite scene to write? There are so many scenes that I love in Playing for Keeps, but I think my favorite, two of my favorite scenes to write were, one was the bowling alley scene where they get to dance in the bowling alley. The restaurant was inspired by this American Mexican dive that my friend Marilee took me to in Colorado. There's a lot of differences. I made this one a lot divier and I added a bowling alley. I can't remember if the place we went to in Colorado had a bowling alley or not. And I love that scene. Every time I would read that scene while I was editing, I would just sort of sigh at the way it ended, about how they're dancing, how they're having this together time, how Anthony is melting a little bit and really opening up his heart to falling in love with Ty. And I feel like that scene really showed the two of them um, moving to a place where they could it could be a real relationship. The other favorite scene is at the end, and I don't want to spoil it, but I love how the ending scene went. I love how fun it is. Originally, I wanted Anthony to declare his love for Ty on the jumbo screen at Lavelle Edwards Stadium during a football game. And I remember specifically talking about this with my brother. We were at Bear Lake for a family vacation and we were all kind of sitting around the living room and I was brainstorming with him, asking him some things. And I told him this idea and he was like, no, it wouldn't happen. And I was like, but it's a romance novel. It'll be really romantic. And he's like, it's just not realistic at all. He's like, obviously you can do it, but it's not realistic. A college athlete wouldn't, when he's in a game, Anthony would be focused on the game. And as unromantic as it is, he wouldn't be thinking about his girlfriend. And obviously, it's different if the college athlete has a wife or, she's in labor or whatnot. It's going to be a different situation. But so instead of having that big thing, I still wanted Anthony to do this really big thing for her, to show her. And what he does, and what is really fun, is something I had always sort of wished would happen to me while I was at BYU. So you should read it, and you should read the final scene because it's great. Another question from Eric was, I noticed similarities between you and Ty. Was that intentional or did it just sort of happen? I think it's kind of both. Uh, Probably a lot of it was intentional. There are things about Ty that I wrote specifically that way because I know how I react, and it's a little bit easier sometimes to make Ty react the same way that I would. A lot of it was unintentional. Ty loves hamburgers, and so do I. And Ty loves football, and so do I. So there are some intentional things. There are some things that just happened. And last from Celeste is, when is the next book coming out? And I'm so excited to let you know that the next book is hopefully coming out next year, hopefully early next year. My publisher, Covenant, has given me some tentative dates, and I don't want to tell you those in case, publishing is an interesting thing, and there's lots of stuff that can happen to delay that or move it up. But hopefully early next year, and this is David's story. I've had so many people tell me how much they love David. Early on, from very beginning writing, all of the readers who helped me critique, so many of them told me how much they liked David and how much they hoped that he had a story. And I've heard so many people tell me that they kind of wished I would end up with David because he's such a great character, and I agree, he really is a great character. And I was really excited to write his story, and I'm very excited that you all get to read his story. And so that will be next year. And thanks for your questions. Thanks for watching. Thanks for having me. And hopefully I'll do more vlogs in the future and get better at this. Thanks. Bye.